decided to go over to Quail Run, and a friend of ours, a friend of maybe some of yours, Lynn Marks, plays the banjo and sings, and he was going to do an hour deal over there to just get his banjo out and sing and do some songs. And so we went, and we had a real good time. And we took Bentley, if you know Bentley, and as we sat there and Lynn was playing, Bentley made the comment, "I love this show." He just loved it. He loved that banjo picking. But there was a song that he did that I had never heard before. And when he announced the song, he told us it was a Hank Williams that wrote the song, and Merle Haggard recorded it. Now how could there be a Hank Williams song that Merle Haggard recorded that I hadn't heard? And he played it, and it was a very good song. So I went and got back here and put together a song sheet. So we're going to do it for you this morning. Take your time, Walter. He didn't have time to get that on his computer. Land set on the mountainside, garden here by tree, taking his disciples on the narrow and free. He blessed the poor and he brought glory joy. He came to heal the blind and lame in the when smitten by his enemy, he turned the other cheek. He brought strength to God and more for those who were weak. He drove the false prophet who worships the sky, and he warned us not to trust him. His servant on the mountainside, living eternity, he'll lead us to the kingdom he promised you and me. So take the straight and narrow, and the good things that count. Make up your minds and live by the sermon. Hey, the sermon on the mountainside, living eternally, he'll lead us to the kingdom he promised you and me. So take the straight and narrow, and do good things that count. Make up your mind to live by the sermon. Amen. Amen. Let's take a little break right there, y'all. How's everybody this morning? Good, good. Everything's good. Amen. It's always a pretty interesting how the Lord takes off for the new year and the things that He does in it. He leads us in a certain way, in a certain place. He leads us to do certain things. Sometimes it seems like a little much, or not sure about what everybody's going to do in it, and then He does tremendous things. You know, in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 14, it tells us that our life is but a vapor. Our life is but a vapor. Now that's kind of a analogy that we can be taken, I would think, as I was thinking about it, reading about it, it's an analogy that could be taken two different ways. Your life is but a vapor. For some, that might mean that there's not much time and I need to do as much as I can in the little bit of time that I have. In relation to reality, the lifetime that we spend on this earth is so small that it's almost insignificant. And that might be the mindset of someone else to say, well, if it's so small, there's not a whole lot that's going to happen that's going to affect eternity, so it's really not that vital. But I began to think about both scenarios. And we say many, many times life is short. But I began to think about the life that I've lived. I began to think about the time that I've spent on this earth and the things that have transpired in just the time I've been here. Now, I was born in 1958, so I wasn't here for the Great Depression, but if you're less than 100 years old, you were here for those days. Because in 1929, our economy crashed. And things changed. It changed America to the point that we still read about it. The Great Depression was the worst economic downturn of America of its history. And it lasted from October, from 1929 to 1939. And we all remember Apollo 13. It launched at 2:13 p.m. Eastern Time on April the 11th, 1970, from Kennedy Space Center. We all know what happened on that day. We think, wow, that was a long time ago. How many things have happened in the midst of all that? And in April 1972, two childhood friends, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, began to implement their passion to develop Microsoft in 1980. Wow. The internet, Microsoft, being able to do everything that we do today revolves around that. I was watching a guy, Greg and Susie gave us a video of some guys that taught at Oral Roberts University. And I was watching, they gave it to us to watch, and I was watching one of them last night. And David Martin, I didn't know this had happened. He told me that YouTube had bought out Facebook and Twitter. And they're creating a new development. And it's called YouTweetface. I just thought I had to throw that in there. That was really good. I like that one. That didn't really happen.
Yeah.
But all of that comes from what two guys did. Two childhood friends grew up imagining things and they did that. And in 1972, I'm sorry, on May 9th of 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted up in Oregon. Huge catastrophe. A lot of people died. A lot of things happened. I was watching reading an article about a guy that was on the mountain, evaluating the mountain for the seismic people when it erupted. Nothing was ever found of him or any of his equipment or anything. And then we all remember 9/11, September 11th, 2001, 18 years ago. Almost. This year will be 18 years. And then the Great Recession of 2009, or 2007, 2009, the housing market bubble supposedly exploded and everything went downturn. That was 10 years ago. Now those are things all that have happened in one lifetime. And there's a whole lot of things in between all of those that has happened, that we've seen happen, that has shaped America into what it is today. Greg and I were talking about this yesterday. How our country's in a mess, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be, and it's not going to change. Because everything that has happened in our country during its existence has shaped it to be what it is today. And it's going to continue on that course. You can't back it up and take any of those things out of the mix. It's already happened. It's already there. It's already done what it's going to do. And the process continues to work the same way. The events that happen shape our country into what it will become. Just because two childhood friends had the wherewithal to come up with an idea like Microsoft and the impact that it's had on the world, not just on America, but on the world. Big events, little events. There's a lot of little things that you can think of that happened to you during those times that changed your life and shaped you into the person that you are today. Your life is but a vapor. You know, as our world changes and as things come about and different ideas and different things, some of the things that were kind of precious kind of go away. They're no longer effective. They're no longer, they're just as precious, but it's too much to try to do. One of the things I was thinking of this last week was one of the oldest inventions of mankind is clay pottery. They have records, according to the archaeologists, they have records of handmade clay pottery to 29,000 years before Christ. The oldest invention of mankind is the clay pot. And they were made by hand by a person with a spinning wheel, and with his hands. They were made that way until the Industrial Revolution of the early 1800s. When mechanical things began to come into play in our society. And now they make one, and then a computer's matches it, and they make hundreds of them at a time. I remember when I was a kid, we rented a house, or my mom and dad bought a house. And the back of the house had a room that was all windows. And it was the old glass that had little lines in it, and it had little rainbows in it. It had different things. It wasn't the glass like we have today. It was the old thick glass, and it had all kinds of imperfections, which actually made it really unique. We don't have that anymore. Those things are gone. But the clay pot, I had an interesting thought as I was thinking about how long man has been making clay pots and the use of their hands to do it. Now go with me to Genesis chapter 2. Very interesting thought right here. Genesis 2 and verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed in the nostrils his breath of life, and he became a living soul. One of the oldest inventions that man has was a duplicate of what God did. God formed man from the dust of the ground with his hands. He molded and he shaped each part of the person into being who he was, and then he breathed the breath of life into him. And I thought about just the whole idea of a clay pot. Have you ever watched anybody, or watched it on TV, or even tried to? Have you ever tried to do something on a spinning wheel? We did it in school when I was a kid. And they give you a piece of clay, and you get it good and wet, and you go on and you get that thing going, and you start to do something, and you make one little mistake, and it turns right back into that ball that you started with. It goes right back to just a blob. It's even a worse blob because now it's got air pockets and stuff in it. You got to work it all back out and then start all over. And I thought, wow, what an analogy that God gives us how he does our life. All the things that happen in your life, everything that has happened from the beginning to today and until the day you're finally called home, is going to shape you into who God wants you to be, because he's shaping you with his hands. Mm-hmm. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 64 verse 8 that we are the clay and he is the potter. Mm-hmm. That he takes us and he shapes us, and the things that happen in our life, sometimes we fight against it. And sometimes we make a mistake and it turns into a blob again. But that's okay, because we're in the hands of the potter. And regardless of if it turns into a blob again, he starts over and he begins to work it back out again. Just like we would do in class in school. You'd make a mistake and it turned into a blob, and you take it out and you start all over until you finally create what you had desired to create from the very beginning. And it was only seen in your eyes before you created it the same way that God creates every one of us different. Only in his eyes does he know who we're going to be at the end. Only in his eyes do we know how it all turns. Does anybody know how it all turns out? And he shapes us and molds us and makes us into that. Over and over and over again until it's perfected. Until he gets us to a place. Go to Jeremiah 18. Jeremiah 18, 1 through 6. The analogy that we see, and it's just so amazing. I want to read those 6 verses. The word which came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I will cause you to hear my voice. He puts him in that environment. He tells Jeremiah, go down to the potter's house. The guy that's down there making a pot on his spinning wheel this morning, you go down there and you stand there and you watch him work. And then my word is going to become clear to you what I'm trying to tell you. And until you can see it, now you're going to be able to see it with your eyes, and you're going to be able to receive and understand what I'm trying to tell you. So go down to the potter's house, and there you will hear my words. Then I went down to the potter's house, and behold, he wrought a work on the wheel. And the vessel that he had made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again, another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to make it. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, saith the Lord? Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so ye are in my hand, O house of Israel. At what instant I shall speak concerning a nation or concerning a kingdom to pluck up and to pull down or destroy it. At any instant, at any time, anything can happen, but that's all up to the potter. Have you ever watched someone, maybe a potter making a pot, and he gets it almost, it looks beautiful to you, and he just crumbles it. It's not what I had in mind. I think of Job as I think about the clay in the hand of the potter, and how the enemy came to the Lord and said, hey, how about Job? You got him all protected. I can't even touch that vase. And God said, go ahead, because I can restore it. You can touch anything but his life, because his life comes from me, and the life that I give is eternal. And so after you've marred it and you've messed it up and you've made a big pile out of it, I'll shape it back 10 times better than it was before. Think about that analogy as you go day to day and things happen. Regardless of what a big mess it might look like to me, God can make it all perfect in His time.